Maybe. Maybe. I think we're live. Yeah, we're live. Okay, cool. All right, you guys. So here's what we're going to do today. Today we're going to talk about a thing called synthetic. I don't know why it's called synthetic division. Division. 2, 12, 21. Look at that. Cool. 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. Huh. Cool. All right. Synthetic division. But before we do a synthetic division, we're going to talk about synthetic substitution. Okay, so I'm going to give you some math words, okay? If P of x is divided by x minus c, and P of x is some polynomial, okay? So P of x is some polynomial. Okay? Like that. That's a polynomial, right? Okay, that's a polynomial, okay? So, if P of x is some polynomial, then P of c is the remainder. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at example 1 and see what that means, okay? So, example 1, scoot it up, okay? Here's my polynomial, okay? That's my polynomial. And if we want to divide it by, I want to take x minus 2 and divide it into 4x squared minus 4x plus 1, right? We could. But the question is this. It doesn't say divide it. It says, is it a factor? So what do you know about a factor, okay? So a factor means that it goes in evenly, right? Okay, example, okay? Ready, you guys listening? Okay. So I put just down the number, I'm going to put down the number 20, okay? Just watch. You don't need to listen, but 20, okay? 5 is a factor of 20. Why? Why is 5 a factor of 20? I mean, tell me. It's obvious. Why is 5 a factor of 20? Oh, that was well said. I wasn't going to say that. That was even better than what I was going to say. So you can multiply by another number to make 20. 5 times 4, okay? Or it goes in evenly, okay? Your answer is better than mine, Vanessa. It is, so it goes in evenly, right? Is 7 a factor of 20? No. So when we do divide 5 into 20, we get a remainder. What's our remainder? Our remainder would be 0, right? If we get a divide 7 by 20, we'd goes in maybe 2 times. We'd have a remainder of 6, right? So the factor theorem says this. It says if P of x divided by x minus c has a remainder of 0, then x minus c is a factor. Goes in evenly, okay? All right, let me highlight this. Remainder of 0. So question number 1 doesn't ask us to divide it at all. In fact, we don't even need to divide it, right? What we need to do is find out if it's a factor. So what I'm going to do is this. We're going to plug in, so if it's x minus 2, we're going to plug in 2. We're going to plug in 2. That's all we're going to do. So x minus 2 set it equal to 0, or x is equal to 2. We're going to plug in 2. So I'm going to, okay, I can do that. I'm going to go 4 times 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 1. Let me get my calculator. I don't think the answer is 0. It'd be nice if it was 0, but I don't think so. Just use my calculator. So I'm going to go clear. I'm going to go 4 times 2 squared. 4 times 2 plus 1. I get an answer of 9, okay? Answer is 9. So P of 2 equals 9. So, here's what we know. It's not 0. It's not 0. So, x minus 2 is not a factor, okay? It's not a factor. But it's the remainder. So, we do know this. The remainder is going to be 9, okay? All right, let's see if I can clarify what we're doing, okay? It's important to understand the question, okay? Now let's get caught up, okay? The question says, it never asks you to divide it, right? It doesn't say divide. This one is. It just says, is it a factor? Well, we could divide it. We could do all the division, and we could look to see what it means. We could, but this is faster. So, well, I don't care what the answer is. I just care if it's factor. So if you plug in 2, and get an answer of 0, I can say, yes, it's a factor, and get an answer. I got the remainder of 9, so it's not a factor. It doesn't go in evenly because there's a remainder. Does that make sense? It's not going evenly, so it's a remainder. It's not a factor. Okay, so now, it does talk about dividing, so if we have to divide example 1, then I'm going to go ahead and do it, and I'm going to prove to you that the remainder is going to be 9. So x minus 2 divided into 4x squared minus 4x plus 1, okay? All right, so let's just do our division like we've been doing. So I do want to divide it. All right, so x goes into 4x squared 4x times, okay? And I'll multiply that times that times that. 4x squared minus 8x, right? What I do is I don't really subtract, but I add a negative. Does that make sense? I will add a negative, okay? I'm going to add a negative because that's the same thing as subtracting, right? Add a negative, and so then that cancels. I'm left with a positive 4x plus 1. So then x goes into 4x how many times? 4 times, right? And I get my 4x minus 8. So I'm going to subtract, but I'm not really going to subtract. I like to add a negative, right? Because I'm subtracting. I'd rather add a negative. Same thing. So I add a negative, right? And guess what I get for my remainder? 9. Hey, I kind of knew that already, didn't I? I knew the remainder is 9. So what does synthetic substitution do? When you substitute it in, you get the remainder. Okay, I'll say it again. When you substitute it in, you get the remainder. Why is that important? Well, if the remainder is 0, you can say it's factor, goes in evenly. If the remainder is anything else, then it's not a factor. Okay, thumbs up on that. If it's 0, it's a factor. If it's not 0, it's not a factor. Okay, now turn the page. All right, synthetic division. Okay, this is really cool, but it only works. So synthetic division only works with an x plus c or an x minus c. Okay, only works. So what I'm going to teach you today is really slick. It's super cool. It makes dividing easy. Okay, but I want to show you before we start what it won't work on. Okay. Back to your homework from last night. All right. So what I'm going to teach you today will work on number 1, just x minus 3. Will not. You got to do it the ugly way, okay? It will not work on 3, but all of these, it'll work because it's just x minus 2, x plus 2, it'll work, x plus 3, x minus 4, okay? So the trick I'm going to show you today only works if you've got some x plus or minus number like this one, okay? So use synthetic division, okay? You ready? So synthetic division is like upside down weird division. So the first thing I want you to do is this. Rewrite it. upside down. So when you're doing synthetic division, just think upside down division. Okay, synthetic division, make the division upside down. Okay, start there. Second thing we're going to do is the x's become invisible. We know they're there. They become invisible. So I'm going to go 4, -2, 1. You guys okay with the 1? -3, and 4. Okay? So synthetic division, super easy way to divide. I'm going to show you. So you make it upside down. The x's are invisible. And then we're going to put -3 here. So we're going to put the opposite because we're going to add a negative. I'll say it again. The reason we go put the opposite is because we're going to add a negative. So I've made it negative. It was like this one. If it was negative, I'd make it a positive. Okay? Now, draw this line. That's called my add line. Or adder. If I would say adder, except for that I'm sure that Brixie would say there's no such word as adder, but you know, I call my adder line. I'm a math guy, right? And then I'm going to put right down here a little box, and that's where my remainder goes. Okay, so here's how I set up synthetic division. Upside down division sign. I make this adder line, because I'm going to put some numbers in here I'm going to add. And I make this little box below the 4, below the constant, and that's where my remainder goes. Okay, so you ready? Got it set up? Always do this. Do your upside down division, do your add line, do your box. Okay, now, and put the opposite here. Okay, here's how it works. Step 1. Bring down the first term. Put an arrow inside of there, okay? Bring an arrow in there, put an arrow right in there because it occupies that space, so you don't make a mistake not to, okay? So bring the 4 down, okay? And then multiply. Just like you would have in division anyway, right? We're going to multiply. Because if you go back to what we did before, we multiplied, right? We multiplied, right? We multiplied, right? So we multiply. Well, that's easy. I get a 4 times a -3 makes a -12, okay? Now, it's my adder line. We've already changed the sign, so we just add. We're not going to subtract, we're going to add. So what is a -2 plus a -12? A -14, right? We just added. I would -2 plus a -12 is -14, right? I'm going to multiply. We're going to multiply again. Okay, so let's see, what's that? 42, I think. 3 times 14. I think so. 3 times 14, 42. Yep. So then -14 times -3 is a positive 42. Okay. Then I add. I get a 43. Then I multiply. Okay, we're going to get some big numbers. That's just the way it is sometimes. 43 times -3. And I get a -129. How am I doing? And then I add. So then that's what, 132, I think. -132. Then I multiply. 132 times 3. Whew, big numbers, but it's okay. It's the way it is. 396. Okay. And then I add, and I get 400, don't I? Now, we're almost done. So, our x's were invisible, right? So we want to bring our answers back. We want to bring the x's back, but we're going to have one less degree because we really did invisibly divided by an x. So our answer is going to have one less degree. One less degree than that. Okay, so my answer is going to be next to the third. My answer is always one less degree. So my answer is going to be an x to the third. So my answer is going to be a 4 x to the third minus 14x squared plus 43x minus 132. And then I get my remainder, right? So what do I do with my remainder? I go plus my remainder over what I divided by, which was, remember the x's are no longer invisible, x plus 3. And that is the answer. And that is a lot easier than doing all of that. You guys agree? Isn't that easy? But it only works on problems like this. Okay, so let's do number 4. Before I do number 4, I want to write 2 numbers down that you guys can look at, okay? 2 numbers. Okay, I'm just writing these 2 numbers down on purpose. These are different numbers. You guys agree? And the 0, what does the 0 represent? The hundreds place, right? Doesn't it represent the hundreds? Without the 0, it's a different number, right? So we're going to see in this one is you've got an x to the 5th, got an x to the 3rd, x second, x1, but you don't have there is no x4, is there? There's no x4. So we've got to make sure when we do our synthetic division, we remember that there is a 0 x to the 4th because you have to have a place value for that. Okay, synthetic division. Let's do it. First step I told you, upside down division symbol, right? Do that first. Upside down division. Okay, we're going to do synthetic division, upside down division. Okay, then what do we do? Well, the x's are invisible, right? So let's put them in. I've got a 5, a 0, got to have my 0 for my place value of my x to the 4th. I'm going to go 3 for my x cubed. I'm going to go 4 for my x squared, minus 4 for my x, and then 1. Okay, so put in the numbers. The x's are invisible. I like to put my adder line in and my remainder box. Okay, so I start out. Put my adder line in my remainder box. And I need to put a positive 2 right there. Opposite, right? Got to put the opposite. It's got to be the opposite. Right? So now, step 1, bring down the first term. So we're going to do the same thing we just did up here. Bring down the first term. Just bring it straight down. I like to put the arrow inside so that we don't fill this adder box with anything that doesn't belong there, okay? So I bring the 5 straight down. And then I multiply. 5 times 2 is 10, right? Add straight down. 0 plus 10 is 10. Then I multiply. 10 times 2 is 20. Then I add. And I get a 23. 23 times 2 is 46. And then I add. I get a 50. And I multiply. And I get a 100. I add and I get a 96. What's 96 times 2? I should be able to do that in my head. Oh, that's Friday, huh? 192. And then I add and I get 193, which is my remainder. Okay, so now the answer is just right in front of us. All we have to do is bring the x's back, right? So it's going to be 1 less power, 1 less degree, 1 less degree. Because it was an x to the 5th. So now we're going to go x to the 4th, okay? So my answer, here's my answer, 5 x to the 4th plus 10 x to the 3rd plus 23x squared plus 50x plus 96 plus my remainder, right? My remainder is 193 over what I divided by. That is synthetic division, and it is a lot easier than if we had to divide this out the long way. You guys agree? It's pretty slick. I like synthetic division. Okay, that's all I have.